much. Thank you also for the possibility to join this very interesting meeting and to present some work which lasts back now 10 to 15 years. And we have just caught up again with the topic. So these are the topics of my short presentation today. I'm going to speak about microscopy, and thanks to other excellent presentations today and presentation of Arnaud, we know how important, and everyone knows how important microscopy is to study and characterize ancient and historic mortars. Then I will quickly come to present the site of Ephesos and from where the samples were taken. And then I will show you some typical examples of Ephesian plaster we found. Later I will compare with a very few other studies we did in Ostia and in Carnuntum, which is in Pannonia and in my country in Austria. And the last point, I wanted to show you something which goes beyond the wall painting and wall decoration, because recently I was studying quite a number of construction mortars from Ephesos, and you can see, or we can see together, the difference in the composition and in the appearance of those mortars as compared to the wall decoration mortars. So why microscopy? I think this is useless in this group here. It was useful maybe 30 years ago when I started in this field. Many chemists, conservation and archaeometry chemists were rather separating binder from aggregate to analyze mortars chemically. We now more and more are using the traditional microscopic methods, which were used since, at least have been used since 150 years, I think, or by geologists to study stones. And so the separation of binder from aggregate is never good enough. We always lose something, we falsificate something, and we destroy the very important together the image of the composite mortar when we separate them mechanically. So we lose a lot of information. And this has been very nicely described in a paper by Elsen, Jan Elsen, Microscopy of Historic Mortars, a review. Now, it's not only important to do microscopy, but it's important to have the best sample preparation in microscopy. And many people work, of course, with polished cross sections, which we can use to study under incident or reflective light, and it's very useful for paint layers, for example. It's the best possibility, and we can go to SEM, to scanning electron microscopy, very well. But quite some time that we at my institute in Vienna are mainly focused on thin sections, not only for the study of mortars, of ancient mortars, but for study of many questions also in conservation sciences. So the traditional thin section has maybe one drawback. It is covered by glass light, so you can look in the transmitted light, but you cannot use it for incident light or for scanning electron microscope. So this took quite some time that we had a good technician who was able to do really good polished thin sections of the right thickness, which are not covered anymore, so we can use one and the same specimen, one of the same section to study under all facilities, all possibilities we have. And this is the polished thin sections. Now, Ephesos, yeah, everyone knows where it is, and I guess you are archaeologists, you have been there maybe more times than myself. Unluckily, the Austrian Institute of Archaeology has lost last year the possibility to work on site. Let's see how it will be in the future. But it was in the 2000s when they started through Norbert Zimmermann mainly to look for a study of their wall paintings, and in Hankhaus 2, which I will show you within short, and there was one master thesis mainly which has never been published, which was studying quite a lot of these samples. Where are the other sites? I will only shortly refer at the end of my presentation. This is Ostia, as you know very well, and Carnuntum is here next to Vienna, Wildobona, from where we have studied, or I have included in this presentation some other samples. Now, this is the ancient Ephesos with the position of the terrace or pending house number 2, which consists of 7 different residential units, with some of them very representative, some other, of course, with some private rooms. And so the question was, as a lot of fragments of wall paintings and plaster and wall painting was found in that area, and they could be ascribed very well to the different residential units. The question was to which extent the composition and the technology of the plaster work and wall painting had changed during the centuries and is changing from important representative rooms to unimportant, less important private rooms. And so here we have some view, and here you can see these are the 4 main stages of decoration in Terrace House 2, which were due to reconstruction works or to frequent earthquakes. So the flats had to be decorated several times in the imperial period. This is just a view of the fragments we received. I'm very lucky with archaeologists because when I work with architects or restorers on buildings, on medieval buildings, it's rarely the case that we get so good quality material as these fragments, which were moreover not altered. They were all buried in a under good conditions over almost 2,000 years, and they had no significant alteration. So here also view on the first thing we are doing. We are producing cross sections, and here I show you just a few of them. These cross sections are best when we don't impregnate it with resin, or we impregnate it only temporarily so that we can polish, and then we let evaporate the impregnation medium, and then we get these structures and true colors. And what you can see here, these are all from that site, and all from the 2nd and 3rd century after Christ, and we have similar situations, so they are all from rather important representative rooms. And we can see here what we have heard before in the presentation before, that we have quite different thickness of the intonaco layer, and even the aricio layer below looks quite different. But in fact, when we studied from a petrographic viewpoint of the aggregate, they are quite similar. What we can see here too, these are big lumps of lime. They give us much information about the production of lime in the slaking process. About this is obviously not a pit, lime putty from a pit, but it's a kind of a dry slaked lime used here. And they are present if they are just in the richer layer, but not in all of the samples. Now, what our thin sections look like this. So we use blue dyed resin. Many people do this, and we impregnate under vacuum. And we start first to look at very low magnification. And here you can see just a normal image of course we can see where the Intonaco or Tonakino starts, but not so clearly. So when we cross the polarizers, we can differentiate between the big, is it marble, is it spathic calcite. I was very interested to hear that some of you used in some cases of your presentation spathic calcite, some of you marble. This looks rather like a spathic calcite, but usually this is marble. And then if we change again the illumination, we can see the color layer, which is a strong red here. So I just changed the illumination with one and the same section without changing the position of the section. And here we can see the Intonaco. And what I would like to point out here, you can see this higher density of the Intonaco as compared to the richer layers of the lime in the Intonaco. We have a white appearance here as compared to here, and this is something I want to refer to. And this is, at the end, it's also responsible for the macroscopic effect of a white Intonaco. It's not only the marble dust or the marble aggregate, but it's also a different consistency of the binder. And what turned out very useful was to convert into pseudo colors. So this makes the whole thing better understandable, and of course this is some work. What we did here, we just counted the aggregate of the Aricho. We investigated, and this is all silicate material. It's a river sand from a small river. It's not very well rounded, as you can see, a very wide distribution of grain sizes. It's not well sorted, and it is the typical petrographic composition of the hinterland of Ephesos, which is metamorphic, mesozonal metamorphic rocks. And there are embedded some marbles, and you know Ephesian marble has played a role also in antiquity, but the most of the country rock is silicate rock. So this is kept in green, and marble is kept in blue. And we can immediately see this is an example of only one layered Intonaco, which is very thin here. I will show you another example soon. And what else is very clear here is the porosity. These are typical big air voids, and such air voids are always indicating high humidity, high water content of the fresh mortar. So it's very clear that the Aricho layer has been applied in a very wet state, while the Intonaco layer has a completely different type of very small amount of porosity. Can you see here the black? And this is of course the shrinkage pores. This happens when a mortar is a little bit too fat or has not enough aggregate. But anyway, this is a low amount of shrinkage here, and we can assume a high compression at the putting of the Intonaco. So this is the same sample, closer view up of the surface layer. Again, transmitted light parallel. Here you can see the sphaeritic calcite or marble. This is the border to the Aricho. You can see the different color of the binder due to different porosity. This is the paint, and this is all ochre. Even if it's a very high quality of ochre. And this is pseudo color, so we can very well see the paint. Typical for most Roman paints I have studied so far, at least for the background paint layers, that they have prepared as a pasty color which has been applied on the surface. The only binder we can find now is lime-based. but it's not no, it's not a fresco technique. Even if the support was quite fresh still, but it's too pasty to be a fresco. Another example, here very striking, the high density of the intonaco. Same principle. So I'm just showing you some selected examples from Ephesos because to make it quick, we have found no significant difference or significant change of material or application techniques through times or through rooms there. Again, this is a brown background, not much has been left. And yeah, this made recently before I came here on one of these mortars, and this is scanning electron microscope where we have about 1 centimeter from top inside. Here we can clearly see the border, and this is an example. This is a late Hellenistic example. Some of them from the late 2nd century before Christ have been, 1st century have been excavated, and so we have a very thick, not as a consequence, but in this case we have a very thick intonaco layer. You can see here, with only some silicate or this is dolomite impurities, but most is marble, and you can see here different layers, and we can see them by their porosity. Yeah? So this is a dense layer with shrinkage pores. Here we have most probably 2 layers of intonaco with air voids, so they were less compressed, and all this comes very close to what Vitruvius reports in putting up the Marmorino intonaco layers. And a closer look on the binder and the electron microscope shows us very well that the binder is very compact and homogeneous in the uppermost part, which is the support of the paint. It is less homogeneous and more porous below here. Why? This is a consequence of the higher humidity and less pressure during the setting of the binder. And finally, here, this is in the binder and the intonaco, and you can see here an unwashed sand has caused a lot of small clay and sheet silicates and mica here. So it's in a way not hydraulic but impure lime binder. And these are again, but other on broken surfaces, the microstructures of the binder. Second example. Similar. So this everywhere we have this bright intonaco layers or surface layers. We have a very compact matrix of the lime. Now I come towards close to the end. I'm now comparing what we found in Ephesus. So 2 examples here. I've showed you always with local silicate sand in the Aricho and carbonate or marble dust in the intonaco. The intonaco sometimes is very thin monolayer, sometimes is thick, and for sure composed of different layers which have been applied wet and wet. And if we compare this, thanks to Stella Falzoni, we had the possibility to get samples from Austria some 10 years ago, if not more, and from 3 different sites. And you can see that in Austria we found 3 different type of layers. One with blue is always marble dust. In this case of Austria, the Aricho is always bearing volcanic fragments. In this case of Santuaria della Bonotea, it's not marble dust but travertine as a substitution in the intonaco layer. And in another building, is this still, you still use this name of Casa de... Yeah. Which is maybe, as I understood, a relatively cheap decoration. Then there's even local volcanic fragments in Tonnacolea. But to keep it bright, nevertheless, there's little of it. So the Tonnacolea is very fat here. Okay, this is finally Canuntum. I'm through. Can you give me 2 more minutes? 2, okay. This is Canuntum, so again another situation. Here in the Tonnacolea, very thick in Tonnacolea, we have a local limestone, a fossil limestone. So people used what they could find in their layers. And of course this pseudo-color editing helps us also to calculate very quickly the grain size distribution and such things. I didn't present this here, this is just one example from Canuntum. These are in the paint layers, so we compared only red with red. Few views of the paint layers, I have no time to go through, Egyptian blue and so on. So we also took care as far as we could with microscopy and scanning electron microscopy to characterize the pigments. These I found interesting because such Egyptian blue, in fact, they tell their story by their composition, what were the primary materials. And these are just, as opposed to the wall paintings, these are just construction mortars of Ephesus, so most of them have this brick components and brick powder, cotropesto mortars, and the story, they're very, very hydraulic, so the composition of the binder is very, very rich in silica, and not enough brick powder sometimes to explain for this much silica. So we were in search of these sources of hydraulicity, and it turned out that there are a number of different sources of hydraulicity, and we are just on the way to study this, because we need more research to understand this, what we call vanishing hydraulicity, because the hydraulic sources of hydraulicity are not always easy to be found. There is some further literature, and here is some thanks to those who helped us, provided us with samples, information, and who worked with us. And to you, I would like to thank for your attention.